I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grow Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Gupta, and recently I have been speaking at a number of conferences. There seems to be more and more focus around mental health and the impact that this is happening and occurring, particularly for leaders and particularly for entrepreneurs. And we have so much extra pressure as leaders and entrepreneurs in terms of leading people, leading processes, managing profits. The list is long in terms of all the things that you do. What was also pretty devastating to hear is how mental health in young people continues to become an issue. But as the focus of our podcast is in terms of how to grow your business, what I wanted to talk about was the relationship today that we have with technology. Now, our technology continues to do amazing things from many years and decades ago when we were able to get to the moon. The latest thing where any conference that I'm speaking at and talking to is the impact of ChatGPT, other AI that's starting to come in. And I think we will continue to see a surge as human beings. We're pretty amazing and pretty smart. So we will continue to see more and more things that will come in to make our life easier. However, it also makes it a lot more difficult to continue to disconnect from technology. So as leaders and entrepreneurs, in terms of when it comes to growing your business, we need this technology to be able to incorporate that. We can't ignore things like ChatGPT and other forms of AI that are coming in. We have to learn how to incorporate them into our daily life, into our daily business. But at the same time, we also need to have more and more time as more technology comes in terms of being able to completely disconnect to it, in terms of being able to go to the roots of who we are. And, there is that great saying in business that in order to speed up, you must slow down. In order to connect, you must disconnect. In order to emerge, you must retreat. So there's almost this thing that you've almost got to do the opposite in terms of being able to do it better. And so I wanted to talk about some of the principles that I've been hearing in different conversations around disconnection. What's a really good guideline? What sort of things that you can do to be able to grow from your business? How do you actually almost remove yourself from the business? And particularly in this case, in today's podcast, focus is through technology. So I wanted to share with you some of the practices that I do in my business, in our family, but also from great speakers, from people that are working with teenagers, from people that are working in the mental health space, and what are some of the great things that they're actually creating, and what are some of the things that they're suggesting. So one of the very common things that, irrespective of who you're speaking to, is that when you get up, the first 30 minutes, you actually have no technology. Now, many of us leaders, many of us entrepreneurs, one of the first things that we do is we get up, we might give our partner, if you've got somebody in bed next to you, a quick kiss, but then we reach out for our technology. So many different places talk about just that first 30 minutes, doing the stuff that matters, writing your goals down, taking a breath, taking some deep breaths, doing a meditation, doing some journaling, reading a book, moving your body, anything but technology. So let's not talk about what we're going to replace it with. Let's go back to the point of technology. The main thing here is that we don't want to look at technology in the first 30 minutes of waking up. At the opposite end of the day, we also want to have no technology for the last 30 minutes before we go to bed. And again, so many people I speak to, that's often I'll just send myself a note. So many times I'll send myself a note. I've just thought about something that I need to do. So I'll send myself an email, I'll send myself a note. I better just do that last urgent email. And a lot of research has found that our brains are still ticking in terms of being able to switch off from technology. And one of the reasons that a lot of experts are talking about, I have a teenage son, and his brain is still firing after he's gamed a couple of nights a week. So he's not allowed to game during the week, but when he is doing some gaming, one of the things that occurs is his brain is still on fire. So even if a teenager stops doing their technology at 10 or 11 p.m., their brains are still going apparently for another 90 minutes or so. So the same applies to us as entrepreneurs and leaders. Our brains are still going if we are connected to that technology. And again, we want to use that last 30 minutes of our day. You could end a very similar thing, do a meditation, take some deep breaths, write a journal, read a book, one that's perhaps not going to stimulate so much, just sit there and be. So you want to look at this rule of how you start the day and how you end the day in terms of just having 30 minutes when you wake up, 30 minutes just before you go to bed in terms of no tech. That seems to be a standard thing. The other thing when it comes to technology is having, now some people are really good at this and they have a day off a week of technology, but just having some dedicated time of no tech in a day. And that is what I believe is really important in terms of being able to do deep thinking work. So many clients that I speak to, particularly from a one-on-one coaching perspective, where they say, I need to improve my productivity. Well, let's turn some tech off. Let's schedule in 90-minute sessions in a day where that is deep thinking, deep strategy, really needing to think about deeply to doing that. And again, there are so many books around that speak about the fact that it takes us somewhere between 17 to 25 minutes. The data and the research varies, but pretty close to on average 20 minutes that it takes us when we are in deep thinking work and we are disrupted in our thinking. So that technology might be, your phone goes bing and it sends you a reminder. Your email goes bing. All the notifications, etc., just basically take us back into that. So when you're doing deep work to looking at how to grow your business, how to grow yourself, how to grow perhaps the people, maybe how to, scale different things in your business, one of the things you want to do is to be able to have some dedicated time without technology to do the deep thinking work. And at least half a day a week on the weekend as a family, we have our phones switched off. Now, it might sound really silly to some of you, but we have this ritual where we put our phones away, what we call in the charging station. It's in a cupboard in the living space. It's got enough USBs and the fast chargers, so nobody misses out on the fast charger. That seems to be a big issue for teenagers. And basically all the phones then stay in there, and it becomes really important to be able to do that. We also use that exercise when we have dinner. So there's no tech allowed at the dinner table. And the aim is to sit together for a meal, seeing that we're running around for the rest of the day. We have breakfast at different times. We're obviously doing school and work at different times. And so dinner's often our go-to meal where we're all getting together as a family, and there is no tech allowed in the dinner table. We have had some visitors that have looked at their tech, and we very politely and lovingly said to them that that's our family rule. And so we would really appreciate if they turn their tech off, and if it's urgent, if they could take it, not at the dining table, move into another room so we can continue to talk about our day and actually connect with each other, because that is often our key point in terms of being able to do that. And let's talk about tech when it comes to that's the family situation, but so we can apply that as leaders and entrepreneurs in terms of being able to grow our family and connections. But let's now look at it. There are so many meetings that I now go into where people have got their laptop opened. People are basically looking at their phone and doing texting. I spoke at a conference the other day, and there would have been about 600 people in the conference, and they had a bit of a no tech rule. There were signs saying, look, please be present. Please don't let your phone ring. There are a number of presenters speaking today, and about a third of the room, so about approximately 200 people out of a room of 600 people were all on their phone. Their posture was bad. They're looking down. They're not looking at me or the other presenters. They're not even in learning mode. They are completely disconnected in terms of what's happening. So the question as a leader and as an entrepreneur is, if you're growing your business, what is your rule? What is the boundaries that you want to set, and ground rules and guidelines you want to set in meetings? Are there certain meetings that no tech is allowed? For example, if it's a strategy meeting and people are constantly checking their technology, if you've got certain meetings, are people allowed to bring their laptops in? I'm part of a particular mastermind, and the whole time that we get together for a month, which is about 4 hours a month, we cannot have any tech on. So all your phone is on airplane mode, any technology, laptop, iPads, etc., all on airplane mode. And the only reason we are allowed to bring that particular piece of technology in is to be able to read off some of the updates or the problems or the a coaching sheet we might have filled out talking about some of the challenges that we're having in our business, etc. But the ground rule is you're not allowed to use tech. You're also not allowed to use any tech in the breaks. Just again, so it doesn't take you out of being present in this particular mastermind once a month. We're all busy entrepreneurs and we want to be able to be there and be really present. If there is an emergency, you can raise it at that particular meeting at the beginning. And then the person that's moderating and facilitating that particular session will bring that up and we'll talk about that and make sure that happens. For example, my husband was away and both our kids were walking home from school. It's not something that they do all the time. This is earlier in the year. So I had raised that with my mastermind to say, look, I just need to, in the break, just check that they've got home safely. They all agreed. And then you did that. That's how strict we are about it. So really, as leaders and entrepreneurs be able to grow your business, you need to have really clearly defined boundaries in what meetings people are allowed to use tech and which they're not, and continuing to reinforce it because people will revert back to their old behaviours. And one of the things you want to be able to do is not get people to do that. So you just want these really, really clear boundaries and you want to bring that up in your ground rules and you want to make sure that people, rather than bring their iPads in that case or laptops, have actually got everything printed so that it makes it really easy, in order for you to be able to do that. So, so just coming up with some ground rules around what you do. And then there's the personal part of you in terms of where you grow. So my husband and I have a rule that we don't have our phones. Occasionally, if one of us has got to fly out and be somewhere, we might have it on airplane mode as a second backup outside of the alarm clock, just in case we sleep through it and miss our flight. But that's probably the only instance that we would actually have a phone in our bedroom. The other time, again, it's in the charging station and you want to then be able to use it only when you wake up and not hopefully in that first 30 minutes. So I just wanted to share with you some of the practices that are occurring. Some businesses are very strict in terms of their technology. Obviously, some schools are now starting to bring in that they've got to put their phones in a Ziploc bag when they arrive or in a basket and they get it at the end of the day. And the reasons that we're doing it is we know that we're losing our productivity, we're losing our focus. And for us, in order to be able to grow a business, we have to be able to disconnect. We have to be able to withdraw from some of the technology. And so I'd love for you to try, perhaps you're already doing some of this stuff, perhaps there's something that I've suggested there. And always so happy for any comments to come in, any questions to come in. You can also send them through my website on the contact form on askshivani.com. And I'd be so happy to send you some links to books or some other resources that might help you really shift this behaviour. And if I can be bold, and almost call it an addiction for a lot of us in terms of what we do that. So I hope you enjoyed that. Always appreciate any feedback. Always would appreciate a rating on Apple and any questions that you have, any ideas that you have in terms of how you can grow your business, which always includes growing yourself. Please let me know. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.